call this meeting of AWAC to order. First, let's start with introductions. I'm Dr. Casey Cole. I represent equine. I'll pass it off to Garth.
My name is Garth Russell. I represent animal control. And I'll pass it on to Bonnie, I guess, next on my list.
Good morning, everyone. Bonnie Martinolich, and I am the attorney with knowledge of animal welfare law. I'm sorry, and I'll pass this on to Katie Lisnick.
Hi, I'm Katie Lisnick. I'm the executive director at Greater Androscoggin Humane Society, and I represent licensed animal shelters on this council. And it looks like we pass it off to Frank.
Yep. Hey, I'm Frank Billings. I own Happy Tails Incorporated in Portland. I'm not sure who I pass it off to at this point.
We can go to Kim.
I'm Kim McLaughlin. I'm the town clerk of Old Orchard Beach, and I'm representing the Maine Town and City Clerks Association. I'll pass it on to Darlene.
Hi, everybody. Darlene Farr, and I represent municipal kennels. I'm not sure who to pass off to. So, has Ann been up yet?
No, it would be Kate.
Hey there, I'm KT. I'm a dog trainer and I own a training facility in Wyndham. I'm also not sure who to pass off to next.
Let me just double check. Julianne?
Hi, everyone. I'm Julianne Smith. I'm the executive director of the Maine Farm Bureau Association, and I am representing farming and livestock. And I'll toss it to you, Liam. I don't know who to introduce next. Sorry.
I think that's all the AWAC members that are on right now.
I'm here, Liam.
Oh, hi, Sharon.
I didn't push the right button in the beginning.
Okay. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sharon St. John. I represent licensed dog breeders.
Perfect. And I am Liam Hughes. I'm the Director of Animal Welfare for the State of Maine's Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry.
Okay. So, first we're going to have Jamie Shore speak today, but I don't think she's here. I don't see her on the list. She had a schedule conflict, right?
I believe so. I haven't heard anything back, so I think we can just kind of move on to the next order of business.
Okay, next we're up to old business. First, we'll start with the animal welfare program updates.
First and foremost, from last time with the meeting, we did create the Animal Welfare Advisory Council website, which basically has the mission of the Animal Welfare Advisory that are available to watch online, the ones that are coming up when we schedule listing of who's in what position. And lastly is about the pledge about cooperating and working with each other, and we don't really deal with harassment, threats, and attacks upon each other because we all come from different viewpoints and we're trying to reach a common goal. So that's been one of the things we were able to accomplish. The other accomplishment we did was the biggest issue that we found with anything dealing with these virtual meetings is that we need a producer, so to speak, or somebody to admin the board while we're having our meeting. That person is Reggie. Reggie Manter is the one you got the invitation from for the meeting. He's our planning and research associate that handles a lot of our inspections, our import issues, and he's kind of our jack of all trades when it comes to the office. So in the future, you're most likely going to be getting the invites, the agendas, and everything come from him. And we're working on the schedule to make sure that you get that at least a week or more in advance. So that way we're all more prepared. And I have to apologize again. It's a lot of things were going on around here. So that's why we didn't get everything ready until the last moment. So, but with everything else, we're learning. We're trying. We know we're going to make mistakes. We know we're going to try to do better. So one of the first questions I have for you, the AWAC board, is we want to talk about creating the updates for AWAC. It was always in the past, or at least before AWAC went away for a little while, very loosely based. And I know some of you have asked the questions about what exactly that you would want in a report. So you don't have to answer that right this moment, but if there is anything that you would like me to report on a regular basis when we have these meetings, traditionally it's every other month. So, but if there's something that you do want me to report on that I'm not, please let me know so we can prepare that as part of our briefing for you. In short, just to kind of give you an idea of what we've been working on, it has been very busy here. Right now is the time of year that we're working on all the yearly stats. This Monday was the deadline for all the animal shelters to turn in their yearly statistics. Animal control officers are still filing with their statistics. I'm going backwards and forwards with a lot of our statistics for the year, double checking things and making sure that we have the appropriate information. All that will be available on March 1st when we release the report to the Ag Committee. So many of you guys may have noticed in the news too, we were in the news with the seizure of cats in Wales. That's still an ongoing case. We're still working on a lot of the medical reports and putting together the evidence, but all total, we did about 111 cats were removed from that house, or at least 111 live cats. One of our agents, because of the last time we did the search warrant, this address, it was, we were overwhelmed. We were expecting to find 60 cats. We seized 87 and we had no more places to put them. So we had to basically leave at that point. And there were still 30 to 40 cats left behind. That's something that kind of hurt us in that court case when it finally did get to court after months of waiting around because of COVID. So this time around, we received new evidence and we went back and we were totally expecting to try to seize 180 cats. And unfortunately, the first day, we only pulled out about 63 live cats and about another 30 plus that were dead. But there are still more cats in the house. So one of our agents did something a little unusual, unorthodox, but it seemed to work, where we were able to obtain a search warrant that let us trap on that property for 3 days. And in that 3 days, the agent was able to get another 47 cats out of the property. The biggest issue to the property is one giant habit trail of tunnels and spots that the cats can go through the walls, ceilings, and crawl spaces. So this was a very large effort that the animal control officers, 5 different rescue and animal shelter organizations helped with. And we even partnered up with a group like Community Cat Advocates that did an excellent job working with us, trying to get these cats into a better conditions and better spot. We suspect there's only a handful of cats left, so there's not much we can do with it, but as we're processing everything, getting ready to take it back to court, we feel that we're in a really good, strong position. So, Jessica joined us. Jessica, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, sorry, I was a patient with a patient. I'm Dr. Jessica Matulist. I'm the veterinarian.
Perfect. Do you want me to start over from the beginning?
No, it's okay.
So, okay. So other things happening here in animal welfare, we currently have 2 vacancies for humane agents. We had a trainee that we were working on for the York Cumberland position, but unfortunately they resigned because they found a better opportunity. We are currently in the process of interviewing for the Mid-Coast position. So we received about 20 applicants and we've been spending some time setting up interviews relatively soon. So hopefully we have a good candidate for that. Julie.
Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand in Teams. I know how to do it in Zoom, but just as the newbie, could you explain a little bit with that situation in Wales, what prompted it and like what law are we addressing by removing all of those cats? I mean, obviously that's, you know, if you've got 100-something cats, that's not safe, but like what are the, can you give me a little bit more of the specifics just so I understand?
The animal welfare laws are pretty simple, where it covers basically proper sustenance, nutrition, food, water, proper medical care, and clean, humane living conditions. So, and proper and clean shelter. So the issues that we're having here is that the animals were not receiving veterinary care. They were living in unclean, unhumane living conditions. They were not receiving proper nutrition, sustenance, basically food and water, and there was disease running rampant. So it's a very unsafe living condition for human and animal alike. And we spent a lot of time, even before the incident in 2019, trying to get spay neuter vouchers to these people, having different feral cat groups go. When we do a search warrant, that means we've ran out of all the other options. Most of the work that the animal welfare program does is based off community policing, where we are working with the people saying, all right, here's the situation you're in. These are the problems that it's causing, and these are the violations of law, but this is how we think you can fix it, and we're willing to work with you. A lot of times, again, we're dealing with a lot of people with mental health issues. There are some drugs and substance abuse issues. There's just also just a general attitude of non-compliance with any type of authority. So it's incredibly challenging for us to do. And if we can get people to work with us and lessen the problem and situation, those are majority of the cases that we deal with that you'll never hear about because we're able to connect resources. But what makes the news are the big search warrants that we do, unfortunately, and those are incredibly stressful for everybody involved: the animal shelters, the staff, the investigators, the animals. And out of the animals that we did remove there, we had 5 critical animals that had to be rushed to the emergency hospital and for veterinary care, and 4 of them didn't make it. They just had no body temperature, no core temperature. It was too late for them, unfortunately. So that's why we're doing it, because again, there are violations of the law that say that these animals are suffering, and we have to take action at that point because everything else has failed. Okay. Anything else, or?
My only other question, and I apologize because I'm new, so I'm still trying to figure everything out. So in a case like this, how did you come to know about this particular situation, or typically just in general, how do you come to know about different animal welfare situations?
Mostly they're all complaint based when it comes to these things. Some of it is due to inspections, like somebody trying to open up an animal rescue and they might not have everything they need. Other ones, it could be where a neighbor and that sees something wrong. A lot of times when you have people that have a large collection of animals like this, it's well known in the community they got a problem up there. So there are people that have made reports to us. We can't say who reported certain things. That's protected by law. But it could come from a variation of sources of, we've had complaints coming from heating and repair people that go in to repair furnaces, and urine is trickling down on top of them because there's a pool of urine on the kitchen floor above them. So, there are different ways that we get the complaints, but most of the time it's, people arrive and they see something and they basically know it's not right. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. So all right, last but not least, for my stuff is that the ACO training, because of COVID, we kind of brought everything back and kept it as a phase 1 online training. We were originally going to do phase 1 training, which is going to be the core competencies, the most basic stuff animal control officers need to be able to go out there and do what they need to do. And then phase 2 was going to be the practical, putting them in the room with other animal control officers and trainers about how to use the equipment, how to communicate effectively, how to act in court, all the practical things that an animal control officer needs to know that you can't learn in a book. We were in the process of starting that off when COVID hit. And unfortunately, most of the animal control officers don't have regular health insurance. And getting COVID will still cost you a lot of money, even though the vaccines and masks are relatively free and cheap. So we basically been postponing a lot of the in-person trainings. we are in the process now of trying to get the phase 2 training back upline. Now, again, we have more information about COVID, how it acts. We're looking at new training opportunities through different companies in the area to try to find out if they can fill the need, because there is a desperate need for more hands-on animal control officer training. And I know we really haven't been filling that void over the past 2 years. And we've made it so for all the basic trainees that if they complete phase 1, they'll be a probational animal control officer until they complete phase 2, when we are able to get that. So we want to be able to get that going, and we're hopefully going to be having a few trainings throughout the state to get those people and their certifications squared away. And then the rest, we're going to be trying to work on more advanced topics for the animal control officers that, again, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity. There's been a lot of stuff available online, but there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for doing some hands-on stuff. So we're planning on doing some more stuff that probably in the summertime, where we can start teaching the animal control officers how to get in the cars for dog and car kind of situations, because that was a very successful training, trying to get them involved with exotic animal or livestock training. So again, more hands-on stuff, because some of these animal control officers may not deal with livestock or 50 birds of exotic natures. But it is something that they want to be prepared for just in case of exotic birds.
Technically, it was only 47 birds.
Okay.
So Liam,
Somebody's talking.
Liam, it's Bonnie. I had a question. Having training available is important, but do you have enough people lined up who are interested in getting training? Or
Yes.
Is there a shortage of interest?
No, there
is. Shortage of interest?
There is a lot of interest in attending the trainings. So it's a matter of basically finding a location to have the training, being able to do it safely. And now the challenging part is finding the instructors that are available to do it, because there has been a lot of transition in a lot of the people that we did traditionally have do the trainings that were people from other agencies that volunteered their time. They don't have the availability like they used to kind of help with the trainings. So that's why we're exploring. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was a little different question, and I may not have asked it right. I feel like there's a shortage of ACOs across the state, and some ACOs are covering so many municipal jurisdictions. Do you have enough? Do you have enough new people interested in becoming ACOs to help fill the shortage that we've got across the state?
There are shortages all across the state. I mean, as I'm finding out, we're trying to fill my 2 vacant positions. So there's been a huge shift in people looking for jobs and what they're trying to do. So there are people interested in the training. We do have people signing up for the training still, but part of the problem is that the animal control officers, we don't employ or hire them. They're all employed or hired by the towns, or they are contracted to the towns, which seems to be some of the problems, that there are a lot of communities that don't support their animal control, whether it be through supporting them by resigned because the selectmen were micromanaging her and basically overriding her every time she went to go do her work with dangerous dog investigations or writing summonses. So it was extremely frustrating to her.
Is this something that we should put on the AWACS list to look into and investigate and see if there's a way we can help improve this? Because I do, it's an ongoing thing for many years. I know that we don't have control over it, but we might be able to find ways that could help improve the system. Whether they get adopted or not is another story, but I'm not sure anybody's looking hard at it. And isn't that something we might be looking at?
Well, I don't think you saw it because you're on the phone, but there is a lot of nodding going on from the other members. So yes, I think that should be something that should be discussed, because we have been talking about a plan of trying to introduce some regionalization of animal control. So that's something that we've been kicking that can around for a while now, and that could be part of the conversation. Garth, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I've spoken to just the people in my area that are either contractors with various towns or work part-time or on call with small towns. And Most of them are actually in favor of doing some sort of regionalization thing where it would be done through the county if the town was small enough not to have a police department or whatever, just because it would be a full-time job with benefits and a centralized reporting system and one person to report to and not, a dozen different town managers. So a lot of the smaller town ACOs are definitely in favor of that.
And we have a
So
couple
maybe
really.
this isn't the place to dig real hard into it. I'm sorry, Liam. I don't want to hijack the whole meeting, but I do want to make sure that this doesn't just get pushed meeting to meeting. And again, I'm promoting a committee. Do we need to start putting things so things happen in between meetings so that we're not, and it's not all on you?
Well,
because you're not going to be able to do it all.
Right. We can move this to new business in a little while. So, because there's a couple other things that you brought up in the last meeting that we're going to be talking about how we're going to crack those eggs. So, but no, that's a good thing. We have a couple good examples right now. The thing I was going to point out was Lincoln County Sheriff's Office seemed to be doing a pretty good job with it. And also the Casco region of a bunch of towns banded together and started doing regional animal control work. And there are a few other communities that are looking into doing stuff like that. So I think there are some pretty good examples that we could probably pull from. I think that we can definitely have a conversation. So I've already started writing notes about this. So if you want, why don't we put a pin in this for new business in a few minutes, and then we can bring that up again.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. With that's the end of my animal welfare updates. So, Cole, Casey.
Thank you, Liam. Next, let's go over the legislation that we're dealing with right now. First, LD 1828. I don't know if you guys saw my email. It passed through the committee. There's an amendment removing Animal Welfare Advisory Council oversight from the Help Fix Me program. Historically, we have had oversight of the program. I don't think privatizing the program contracting it out is going to fix the problems facing the program, but I really like the program, so I hope it actually helps. We'll see how this goes. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on this right now.
Was there anything that said if AWAC doesn't oversee the program, is anyone?
It falls back to the commissioner.
Pardon?
It falls back to the commissioner. At the end of that amendment, it provides for an evaluation of the contract after 3 years when the sunset happens, and it would be the department, the commissioner's designee.
Okay, thank you.
And we still technically advise the commissioner on animal welfare issues, so we do have a little leeway to work with that.
Yeah.
Who's interested in the contract?
That kind of remains to be seen. So there were some people, and actually we have a guest speaker, Abigail Smith from Animal Welfare Society, and she also runs the Clio Fund, which is the private largest spay neuter program in the state. And, she's spoken with Casey and I about, what kind of needs to happen for rulemaking. I mean, even if the program were to stay where it's at, it still needs rulemaking and changes because it was okay 15 years ago to have it the way it is, but it needs to evolve, and the situation out there in the real world has changed. So, and I think, Casey asked Abigail to kind of get involved and maybe you might want to say about what the Clio Fund's been doing and kind of the changes that they've noticed that they've been able to do. Because we've always kind of been comparing, ourselves to each other. The state and the Clio Fund tries to stay within the same price range for reimbursement. Just because they're a private organization, they can do things a little bit quicker than us. So,
I think that would be a good introduction for Abigail to speak.
Yeah, so Abigail, I just changed your stats to our presenter. So if you want to unmute.
I think you changed it to an attendee.
Did I?
There we go.
Okay.
You should be able to unmute now. Abigail, are you with us?
I think she's gonna log off and try to log back on.
Okay.
All right. Well, if Reggie can spot her when she comes back on. Again, all these fun learning experiences we've been having. So.
Oh, yeah. Does anyone else have any comments on the animal, the Help Fix Me program at this point?
Just so you guys have some updated numbers on Help Fix Me. Hold on one second. We just pulled the numbers last night. Since January 1st to yesterday, we've issued $215,000 worth of vouchers, and we've processed over $65,000 worth of vouchers that we've paid so far this year. Currently in our accounts, there's about $380,000. So that's kind of where we're standing right now with the amount of funding we have available. But as I've tried explaining before, it's kind of like a dam where you open up the dam, it takes a little while for it to go down and the rain comes and fills it back up. So it's hard to tell where we are financially at any given time. But currently we have $215,000 worth of vouchers that are out there. And a lot of them are working with the clinics. Last year, actually, late 2019, everything, we started working. We normally have been working with the clinics around Maine, giving them applications, but we hit upon the idea of just basically giving them the vouchers as well. That way they're basically both together, and they're doing, the clinics have been doing some of the legwork for us, where they're going out in the community, they're finding people that are qualified, they're doing all the paperwork right then and there the day of the surgery, collecting the copay, and then sending it all back to us. That sped up the process greatly and created a huge demand for vouchers. So that's why, we were able to spend over 2021, last calendar year, about $400,000 worth of vouchers went out all at once, because we start working directly with the clinics that are out there looking for the problems. With so many veterinarians not doing the surgeries as often or getting involved, that seemed to be a great way to address a lot of the problems in the more resource desert areas. So Abigail, are you back on?
I am sorry about that.
Okay, perfect.
I don't know where, excuse me, I don't know where you left off. What would you like me to do?
Well, all right. First off, why don't you give us an overview of the CLEO Fund and what you guys have been doing and what changes have happened over the past several years to Help Fix Me, or at least spay neuter in the state, and what kind of needs to change to keep it healthy and alive?
Yeah, sure. I think you said it well when you said that the program was designed 15 years ago, and the landscape has really evolved since then. I think the biggest, most noticeable thing is the capacity of veterinary clinics to meet the demand of people who have pets now, and that was compounded especially by the pandemic. And so we have fewer veterinarians with less capacity. And so we sort of need to, what the CLEO Fund has had to do is take a look at ways we can get resources to areas of the state that simply don't have them anymore. Where in one county there may have been 3 veterinary practices, there might be 1 left. And at the same time, from a national perspective, we can also see very clearly that the number of veterinarians that are graduating and entering the field every year is definitely being, and has been for years and years, outpaced by the demand for veterinary care. So it's a complicated problem that I don't think the state of Maine can solve very quickly. I would like us to have a vet school, so if you could put that on your list of things to kind of get going, that would be good. But in the meantime, we've looked at other models, ways to get spay neuter surgeries and other services provided to folks that are in areas that are hard to reach. And the way we've done that most efficiently and most effectively are sort of MASH style mobile clinics that happen over a 2 or 3 day period. We've done a lot of work in Washington County, up in the Holton area, up in Caribou. And what we have veterinarians and teams of people. Some will have actual mobile units. But I think the most efficient way to get literally hundreds of surgeries done over the course of a few days, primarily sometimes to have a space to go and do the clinics. And Help Fix Me has partnered with Clio Fund and other collaborators to do these all over the state. There are a lot of players involved, and over the last several years, we've worked well in collaborating, putting all of our resources together. Whereas in any one clinic, you could have Clio Fund paying some of the stuff, Help Fix Me vouchers involved, Marion's Dream Money involved. And it's been very, very successful in getting a large number of surgeries done. So if Help Fix Me is going to continue to be able to have a great impact, it would be imperative that they could continue to work collaboratively in this model. I would also say that sending the vouchers direct, we also have a community veterinary clinic that's 100% public facing. And so we do a lot of spay neuter at our own shop here in Kennebunk. And so we have that resource, the Help Fix Me vouchers in hand that we're able to just directly issue to qualified clients when they call us. And that has sped up the process immensely and is really good practice.
Yeah. Thank you. And yeah, the collaborative effort that we've been able to do, I mean, it's been one of the successful things when we all start working together towards that common goal, because again, there's things that we can do as a state, but there are things that Clio Fund can do as a private organization. And there are other players out there that are currently working on a lot of the same things. So when we all kind of team up together and start moving in the same direction, we get a lot of stuff accomplished. Part of my statistical gathering that we're trying to work on is, the shelter surveys about the amount of animals going into the shelters and the euthanasia rates. And we're starting to see, those rates fluctuate and gone down. There's been far less euthanasias over the past several years. I think we're at a live release rate of about 95%. And I have a feeling that's going to be again this year as well, too, or at least within that range. So we know the spay neuter programs have done great work. And when I first came on board 10 years ago, what Maine specialized in when the animal cruelty world was hoarding houses. We had more hoarding houses per capita than anywhere else I can think of in the nation. So because we've been going out there actively using spay neuter programs to deal with these hoarding situations, or at least trying to target them before they become a hoarding situation, that's had a huge effect about how we handle situations in the field, or how many cruelty cases that we've had to prosecute. So there's always a direct effect of one to the other. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the bill so far just yet. We were going to be bringing on somebody today to talk about the RFP process and what that means on our end, because that would basically be the advertisement for the contract to run the program, and then what that would mean when there is an actual contract. And then what kind of metrics will we need? And that's one of the things I wanted to bring to you, the AWAC committee or council, and maybe Abigail can help with this, but we need to find new metrics to measure our successes. Just the euthanasia rate just doesn't describe the situation out there anymore, because it's gotten far more complex. So we have, the public demand for pets has exploded exponentially. The resources available for pet owners has decreased significantly. So how do we measure where that is? Because just measuring the euthanasia rate or live release rate isn't cutting it. Does anybody has any suggestions, Sharon?
Is there a limit on administrative costs in the program?
Under the rules, yes. Currently, I think it's about 15% of the fund can be used for administrative costs.
And what about funds for education? Is there a component for that?
Not through Help Fix Me. So, and also to point out too, we worked last year of doing a listening session and talking to the veterinarians and doing a survey with them. And after all that information, we worked on changing our vouchers and increasing the rate. So we basically raised the rate 50%. So a lot of the funding that we have right now is going to get used up because everything increased by a large amount. So this surplus of money we have might not be there come the end of the fiscal year in June. And
so the majority of the money is going to direct care, but because of the increase, fewer animals are treated because each costs more.
That is the way it will probably shake out. We don't know for sure yet. So less vouchers. I mean, for the lifespan of a Help Fix Me voucher is about 9 months from the time somebody calls and requests an application. It gets mailed to them. There's about 60 days for that application to stay good for. If they remember this. If they've sometimes things change in the world and they don't use it. There are some people that get these and forget about it. So we've made a promise that we're going to pay that money. So we try to count those vouchers as already being paid for and spent. But then after about 9 months, they're expired. So we put it all back in the pot. That's kind of one of the flaws of this voucher system, especially being run through state government. It's not an immediate ABC. You know, we have a time frame where these things have to last before they expire. So this is why we kind of have this fluctuating surplus of money. Darlene, did you have something to say, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So yeah. We offer more services now too as well. There's an extra money that's handled for the veterinarian, so they are encouraged to do work on feral cats. Feral cats are a little bit more expensive to work on because it takes more people to handle feral cats as they come in. They require more restraint. We are offering Elizabethan collars, flea treatment. You know, there are different things that we're offering, as well as just the cost of the surgery, to make sure that we are reducing as many roadblocks for the surgery to happen.
Do we have the number on how many feral cats are spayed and neutered from the program specifically?
We were not tracking that. The program originally, as written, was basically saying that this was for owned cats. So it was basically for anybody who owned a cat. Feral cats don't really traditionally have owners. So several years back, we took a look and said that, well, if they have a caretaker, that's their owner. And if their caretaker applies for the program, that will count. But we've never really measured the metrics of what is definitely a feral cat. I'm sure if we spent a few weeks looking through all the records, you know, we could probably get some numbers, but that's a lot of statistical gathering for the past couple of years. And again, there's no checkbox saying it's a feral cat until January 1st of this year.
Just because I think that would be a good metric for the success of the program.
Would there be any way to get rid of the mailing aspect of it? Whether it be, because that seems what takes forever is mailing and processing. If they could, I don't know if they could log on to an online portal somehow, where they can say, put in their information, request it, and they get an approval, you know, within, you know, a day, or if it can be done automatically. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing this out there.
No, these are some of the things that we already started working on, because you can go onto our website now and request an application or start filling one out. The technology is finally coming to fruition with certain things within the state. Please keep in mind that we're still using a database from 2001 to keep track of a lot of this stuff. So we're not quite as evolved yet, but we are getting there with some stuff. We've been trying to look into ways of basically making it so people could pay the copay online as well too. And there's been research into finding out whether or not we could all create this as one platform where basically application copay is automatically filed online, and then the voucher is basically electronically issued, which is a little bit like how, and Abigail, correct me if I'm wrong, New Jersey does it, where those vouchers are then at the veterinarian's office waiting for the person to show up with the cat. So there are
that
ways
makes
of making
sense.
it go faster.
Liam, do you have any sense of why people are waiting so long to use the vouchers?
No, Abigail and Katie and I have spoken about this at length, and I know Katie, if you want to chime in, but sometimes it's just people forget. It's not a priority. Life happens, and they forget it. And a lot of times when it comes to these vouchers, we'll still honor it if it's like, a month or two off. We'll still honor that voucher to get it going. If it's a few years old, we probably won't. We'll have them reapply again. But Katie?
Yeah, I think, the population that the Help Fix Me vouchers are trying to reach or are targeting, they have a lot of challenges. So it could be something as what might not appear to us, but maybe it's a transportation challenge. They can't get to a local veterinarian. They have a bill that pops up that, is going to take all of their resources to get them to do that and not be able to get to this vet clinic. But I think one factor that hasn't been discussed yet, and it ties into the fact of taking so long to get vouchers out through the mail, the cat's already pregnant. So for the females, they're calling when there's an urgent need for that procedure to be done, whether it's, the animal spraying or they're in heat or they're going outdoors. And I'll hear regularly from clients that we do here through the voucher program at GAHS that we missed the boat. Kitty's already pregnant, and they have to then wait months for the kittens to be born and weaned and all that before they can get the procedure done. So I think that is a big factor as well.
Yeah. And this is where working with a lot of the clinics has come in handy, where we are providing them the vouchers and applications ahead of time. So long as the person qualifies for the program, we can get things going a little bit smoother and faster, but there's still hiccups. So
would there be a way to use clinics, like pre-approved clinics, I guess? I don't know exactly what you would call it, but basically they just have an allotted amount of 10, and if someone walks in their door and says, hey, I need to get my cat fixed, they don't have to go through the state. They already have them there. They can just sign them out, be like, okay, we'll fill it up, hand it to them, get it done, when their next appointment is, then send it to the state and be like, we did this.
There are several shelters and clinics that do that. I think, Katie,
Okay.
you have a stack of at least 25 left, right? And Abigail, yeah. So there are the shelters that have the resources to get those spay and neuters happen sooner rather than later. Usually we've been working with them so they have some available. But there are a lot of shelters within the state that just don't have the veterinarian capacity, or they just don't have the ability to have those clinics. So they rely on the MASH style clinics to come up every couple months to do these types of work. And this year was kind of an interesting year where we have Maine Northwoods Mobile and Dr. Speary, who are two of the more common names when it comes to mobile clinics that are right now. Currently, January was a big month for them, where we gave them a lot of vouchers at the beginning of the year, where usually, normally this time of year is very quiet for Help Fix Me. It's kitten season hasn't started yet. So, but they're out there pounding the pavement, finding these cats that need the surgery. So like I said, it's been definitely interesting to see some of the changes, because the expectations have changed about when these surgeries are happening. There's no more traditional kitten season type of stuff that we've been able to see on our end.
I'm wondering if the participating vets could also get a allotted stack or whatever of certificates, so they don't have to deal with waiting for the wait times, and that could be a way to do it. I don't know how involved the vetting screening process is on your end, Liam, before you issue them out to the clinics.
A lot of times people just have to prove that they are on some sort of government assistance or they make under the poverty amount. So there's some leeway with that, and that they are 18 years old and a resident of Maine.
Okay,
So
that's easy enough. I mean,
yeah, so I mean, we see what other places like Vermont has done with a lot of roadblocks where they have like I think a 5 to 7 page application. You know, we try to keep it all on one page. And you know, we're just asking that the clinics that do have the vouchers and applications just, you know, check this stuff and send in the copies of the proof of eligibility with the application. We double check it when it gets here, but for the most part, everybody has been really working really well together, and we haven't had any problems with it, or at least nothing major. And there's been some minor typos and paperwork issues that are easily resolved. So,
okay.
Do you have any sense, though, whether veterinary practices really want to be in the job and in the position of determining eligibility? Doesn't that become one more workload for them? I mean, I don't know from a veterinarian's point of view what they know about their clientele, but they don't typically ever ask about income. They expect you to pay the bill. A person would have to allege a financial need, wouldn't they, primarily?
the thing with these mobile clinics, especially they're doing, are the clinics that have these, they're normally paired up with an animal shelter that is doing a lot of the legwork for them and filling out the paperwork. I'll let Jessica respond to how veterinarians feel about certain things.
So again, we do a lot of help fix me here. We usually have 1 or 2 a day in our particular practice, and we do some Clio funds as well. And Skowhegan area is a rather poorer community. It's definitely not like Portland. So, we know a large portion of our clientele, finances are a concern. We definitely do not know exactly their finances, obviously, but we do know that they are financially constrained. So I don't think we'd necessarily be against doing some sort of process for them. I guess the question becomes, it's kind of like the whole, and I think hopefully program, looking up, deciding, looking up their medical history and stuff, it's kind of it walks that fine line between, when are we the financial advisors and then the veterinarians at the same time. So it does kind of walk a little tricky line that I think some of us might be uncomfortable, knowing our client's financial standpoint, but we know, there's definitely some clients who come in that I know that they have $50 in their pocket and that's about all they can spend that day. So I think it does get a little bit uncomfortable for most veterinarians, at least the veterinarian, speaking from me and not my boss, who's the owner of the practice. He'd probably be a little bit more inclined about doing that kind of selective process versus having us do it, from that relationship standpoint. So I think it would make quite a few veterinarians uncomfortable to do that kind of legwork. But if they are run by like a practice manager, a practice owner who's not a veterinarian, who will be willing to kind of tackle that, and the clients would feel comfortable with them knowing that information, I think that would be okay. But I definitely see veterinarians not being willing to do that in particular. Like I said, with the PMP program, when we have to look up these clients and look up what opioids they're on and stuff before we even prescribe medications to their animals, it's like, that kind of makes me a little bit uneasy as itself. And I personally don't like to do that. And I've had clients be like, listen, I'm on this medication. I don't need to know your personal history. I just unfortunately need to know if you're abusing or not before I dispense this, opioid to your dog, and that's always kind of an awkward conversation. So I think if, from a legal standpoint, it'd be nice to have the person higher up in the hierarchy in the practice, like a practice manager or an owner of some kind to be involved in that process. So
I could see that definitely working as like an optional thing where if you do have a manager who's willing to ask those questions, that's fine. And if not, then totally understand. You don't want to make people uncomfortable or voluntarily helping with this program. So
I'm sorry to keep asking so many questions, but I'm thinking about the MASH things that you mentioned. That seems to make a lot of sense in many ways. And the people that come to those are typically people who already have a voucher, or are you issuing vouchers also at that site on the day of the MASH?
Everything is sort of booked ahead of time, and so we would handle that administrative process as we're scheduling, you know, how many people per day per location. So ahead of time typically. And then we would do, as we process people coming in, I mean, we don't do the like snail mail this, get this back in the mail, then mail this, and I need your $20. We just handle the whole transaction at once, and we do everything by electronically as much as possible.
Okay. Now, a lot of this is depending on where the votes and what happens when LD 1828 actually hits the House and Senate floor. So there might be more discussions about rulemaking to try to make sure that this program is going to be a success moving forward, no matter what happens to it. So Kim, you had your hand up.
So for Old Orchard Beach, we are a tourist community, but we are becoming an older community, and there are a lot of elderly people who have pets who can't get to the vet for them. We've partnered with Animal Welfare Society, with Abigail's. So we would have a festival, say, Pine Point Animal Hospital would come and give the cheap $12 rabies shot. And then they would sign up with the Animal Welfare Society ahead of time, and the Animal Welfare Society would come to Old Orchard Beach to where we were at the ballpark, and they would pick up all the animals in the morning, take them back to the Animal Welfare Society, and then meet the owner back in the afternoon with that. And that, I can't tell you how many people really appreciated that. And it'd be nice if we could do more stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's a great example of some of the partnerships that, you know, these groups like Abigail's, you know, helping provide some of these wellness services for the communities that just can't get wellness services anymore because of the lack of veterinarians that are out there, or the lack of capacity for veterinarians. So that kind of stuff, Abigail and I think Animal Refuge League are, you know, the two that I think have hospitals actually built into their facilities. Katie, did you have plans for that in the future as well too, about, you know, basically adding a clinic to your shelter?
Yes, won't happen overnight, but yeah, the need is definitely there in the community. And Kim, like you said, trying to, you know, make it as easy as possible for folks going out to where they are into our downtown community, providing transportation. I think the, you know, the importance here, or the kind of the thing to be keeping in mind as the program looks to the future, is being nimble and able to kind of pivot, or have multiple different ways of addressing and overcoming barriers to help people get the services that they need.
And before you mute yourself, and Abigail, feel free to chime in as well too. The basic trends of animal sheltering within the country seems to be going in this direction, where you're providing more community resources instead of just being the traditional dog pound. So, which a lot of people still think that that's what animal shelters are. Am I correct?
Absolutely. You know, the national trend, we're seeing pretty drastic changes in pet populations. The demand for pets is there. The overpopulation challenges that we had decades ago aren't necessarily the challenges that we have nowadays. It really is access issues, access to care, behavioral support, veterinary support for pets in families that are struggling. They're not just struggling to afford their pet, they're struggling to afford food and shelter and healthcare and all of the myriad financial challenges that people have these days. So really finding ways for us to be a community resource to help support those families, including their animals, I think is really the wave of the future for sheltering, or the wave of now. It's already here.
Yeah, that's true, for sure. And I would say that you're seeing it not only in areas of the country like the Northeast, where our problem is not overpopulation as our first priority, in areas of the country where overpopulation is still the biggest problem, the set of programs that provides community resources and community support is the same set of programs, only just for a different reason. They're trying to deflect intake and keeping families together and pets in their homes so that the shelters can stop being so overwhelmed. Our shelters are empty. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and we have evolved to a place in terms of overpopulation where this is how we resonate. This is how we best reasons, same set of programs. It's a win-win for animals nationwide, I think.
Thank you. Kim, do you still you're heading up? Okay, we'll take your hand down then.
I think as an ACO, that's what I run across with a lot of the people I deal with is, okay, you need to take them to the vet for XYZ. Well, I can't afford that. And then it becomes an issue of, well, it needs to be addressed. So you either find money or you surrender them to the shelter. So the resources to take them to the clinic or get some help with that is a big way to keep them out of the shelter in the first place. Because money or not, you still need to fix the abscess tooth or whatever it may be. So I think that's definitely a big help as far as, and having that resource available to me that I can say to them, say, hey, you can take them to here for, help with that is a big one. Because I'm the one who deals with these people, or my counterparts are the ones that deal with these people fairly often. So.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Abigail. Next, just a brief update on LD 1744, the funding bill for animal welfare program. That's going to the Appropriations Committee.
Well, I think there's some question about that because the way the bill was voted out, it was a 50-50 split. And I haven't heard if any of the absent members voted on it because half voted that it should go as is to Appropriations Committee, where it has a good chance where it might not survive because there are a lot of other bills asking for money. And then the O'Neill amendment, which was the other 50%, was basically saying that it should be locked in at $40 for the general fund and raise the rate $20 and everything else go to animal welfare, which would give us about half of the funding that we need. So that would at least cover the cost of hiring the 2 new agents that we were granted in the budget last year. So that I think we need the funding to help get these new positions. We need to basically get these new agents in the field because we're overwhelmed. We have over 550 places to inspect a year. This year, I was just doing the figures, it's just shy of 300 animal cruelty complaints that we have to investigate. So, and right now, I currently only have 4 investigators. So inspections are not going to be accomplished on time. We're going to go to places of cause of complaint or try to follow up on places that we know need extra attention, but we need the extra staff members to catch up on a lot of this stuff and offer support for our agents who are alone in the field. I have one agent who is in the freezing cold and the snow, rounding up about 25 rabbits and 50 chickens by herself. And, trying to wave down passing cars to help them get the crates back in her truck. There was no animal control officers available, no law enforcement, no fire officials that could actually gone out and help her. And the nearest agent was 4 hours away. So, I mean, it's really concerning about how alone my people are out there when they're dealing with these people with mental health issues, drugs, or just a flagrant disregard of authority. So, and it's not like we're there throwing law books in their faces. We're just trying to have a talk with them. So, we really desperately need to basically get those additional staff members trained and in the field to assist the already overwhelmed agents that we have.
Will you keep us updated when we get more words from the vote?
As information becomes available, I'll pass it on to you. Like I said, we
I've tried
haven't.
to keep an eye on it, but I haven't been able to, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any comments on LD 44? That's 1744, sorry.
Liam, you mentioned that there were no other law enforcement officials available to help that person. Is there a potential for there to be animal control training for other law enforcements, for forest rangers, wardens, police officers? Because it seems like we have, a pretty serious problem where we can't get animal control officers. If we get people that are interested, we can't get them training. We don't have funding. So could we maybe combine those needs with another organization, so that we're not, in this void of, we don't have funding, we don't have people, and we don't, and the people that are working aren't getting the support that they need.
We already have a lot of law enforcement officers that do attend the ACO training. A lot of the same training modules are used in the state police training and everything. So we've used a lot of the same trainings that they use. The downside is that they're having the same problems we are. There are a lot of law enforcement agencies that have closed their doors or just can't find people to take the shifts. I was talking to one over the next couple months, and there's not a lot of people stepping up for the positions. So they're in every agency. I was talking with our HR person that handles our applications. It is really bad all over trying to find qualified candidates to basically fill a lot of the positions that are out there, not just with animal welfare, but in forestry with the rangers, in the game wardens, in the state police, in the county sheriff's department, in the local police departments, in the volunteer fire departments. The people just are not there, and I don't know what else can be done to try to get bodies out there, especially when we're talking about areas of Penobscot, Aroostook, and Washington County, where it's a pretty low population area. So it's hard to find those people that are willing or able to actually do these jobs, or even if they're qualified for it. So we are always trying to work with and maintain good relationship with all other agencies. I mean, we've had good relationships with the Department of Transportation, and they've been able to come out and help us with several things in the past, especially when it just comes to lifting something. But right now, like I said, we've been reaching out looking for any type of assistance, and the cupboards are bare. There just really isn't a lot of help out there. So we could put on trainings, but there might not be enough people to fill a lot of the void that's currently out there for a lot of the positions.
Anyway, my big concern with the legislation is that if we're going to start adding another tax on to animal feed, that's something that we certainly oppose. I mean, we're now asking the companies that benefit the animals, that are feeding these animals healthy food, to pay for a lot of people who are neglecting the animals, who probably aren't even using their products. So I'm trying to think of alternative ways rather than creating an additional tax to find the funding and fill those needs and gaps that exist, especially if we can't even get people to apply. I mean, I know it's a statewide issue, but it seems like if we could combine forces in some way, then rather than having to hire a whole new person. If you're just having, you know, a portion of an existing job allocated to animal welfare, that might be an opportunity that wouldn't be as costly. And you know, especially if it's somebody who's already employed within the state.
Julie, this is Bonnie. I'm sorry, I should probably raise my hand, but that's it's an interesting point, because it would seem, I mean, congratulations to the state of Maine. The Animal Legal Defense Fund just named our animal welfare laws the best in the country. So we've got some really remarkably good animal welfare laws, and we need to enforce them. And sometimes, and I don't know how we get there, but if we can get some level of enforcement, costs will go down. Because I think, Liam, it's not just employee cost, it's the cost of enforcement, the cost of feeding, the cost of, you've taken all these cats in and now you're paying for the medical attention and to have them ordered somewhere while they remain as evidence. And so that's an interesting idea, Julie, how we might figure out how to get better enforcement, maybe with a wider force of people looking out for the animal welfare laws. Enforcing them, and that will, you know, in the end, reduce the overall cost of what the Animal Welfare Division is tasked with doing. So that's just another aspect that I, you know, think about.
I think one of the points being made is that the other departments within the state are also facing worker shortages, and we might not be able to reach out to them for assistance.
Right. That's
Understood.
One of the problems. Go ahead, Bonnie.
No, I understand that, but I also think that sometimes maybe they're tripping over things in the course of their day that they might be able to help without actually having to take a lot of time. But I understand it's not just the government; it's private businesses as well. Everybody's struggling.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's hard all over. And, you know, in my ideal world, in order to do proper enforcement, we would have at least 12 agents out there. But we can't afford that. Having 8 agents to basically go out, do the inspections, do the enforcement actions, to go out and be part of the community would basically be the step in the right direction, because it's not just about enforcement. It's about being proactive and doing more education. And that's one of the things that, you know, if we were able to get the additional funding, one of the things we really needed to do was a community education program that could really set the bar for the community to know what their responsibilities are. Right now, that funding is being used for preventing a lot of hoarding cases, preventing a lot of animal cruelty. Yes, it's paying for some of these animals to be in our custody and care, they get rehabilitated, but there's still 90% of the state that is law-abiding, good animal owners that we're not dealing with. There's not every house is abusing animals. There's a small percentage of people, and unfortunately we seem to be running into the same people constantly over and over again. So and the last time there was a significant increase to animal welfare funding was 2001, when they basically changed the rate for the pet food registration, and they made it, you know, half and half, up to $80. 40 of it went to animal welfare, 40 of it went to the general fund. So Katie?
Just a question, thinking about other ways to generate funding. We have the license plate, obviously the animal welfare license plate. There's also the tax checkoff that supports the Help Fix Me program, but the license plate particularly can support both Help Fix Me and the animal welfare program. And I know that the state has a marketing department. I'm not sure, it's probably not in the Department of Ag, but however that funnels up, I see the chickadee checkoff, you know, I see other license plates promoted, and I never see any of the animal welfare channels promoted. Is there a way that we could get some attention to some of those so that animal loving Maine citizens could know that that does benefit?
Yeah, we've actually been talking with our public information officer, Jim Britt, about the different ways that we can get that messaging out, whether it be through the department's social media or making PSAs. They actually was just a PSA that we did back in 2012 with some students at the New England School of Communications about getting license plates that, has been sitting dormant online in YouTube land, and that's being put back out there. And we're looking for ways to get this messaging out. The license plates and the tax checkoff do bring in some money, but not an incredible amount. Just so you have an idea, for 2021, animal welfare license plate brought in about $147,000 to animal welfare. And the tax checkoff, you'll have to forgive me, this is not. I think it was about $16,000 or $17,000. So, we'll take any funding we get. And I know this is one of the things that Bonnie had asked about, having that discussion about, well, what other sources of funding could there be for animal welfare, not just the traditional routes, not just keeping going back to the well of the feed registration, or trying to get more money from dog licensing, or trying to raise certain rates on certain things. But are there other things that we're not thinking about that could be revenue generators for animal welfare?
How difficult would it be, Liam, to have, at the time when people go and get their, the animal license plates, just say, would you like to make an additional donation, and say, 20, 50, $100. Is that a possibility? Because I think most people would probably donate extra if they were asked.
Since Kim gives out license plates to people, I think she'd be the person to ask.
Actually, in the town hall, it's the tax office that does all the vehicle registrations, but I can tell you that would be very difficult for them to be able to do that, because they'll issue a license plate to someone, then they're going to have to account for that money that they wouldn't normally account for. I could certainly find out exactly what they would think of any process on that, but I think it might be a little difficult for them to do it, and every town's different, and who processes and who takes the money, and so I think it might be a little difficult for them, but I can certainly find out.
We did, back when we did the Solon seizure, when we took in all the collies, we were able to activate a donation button on our website. So we were able to have people donate directly, and we never took that off. So there's always been an option for people to go onto the website and donate. And I believe that's also tied into the online dog licensing. When dog licensing is active, you can donate through that as well. Sharon?
I recently heard a suggestion made that perhaps there could be combining a rabies shot at a veterinary clinic with issuing a dog license. Of course, that again puts more work on the veterinary clinic, but it would also direct more money to the department.
That was one of our plans with when we were looking at creating that dog licensing database. We created several years ago, we changed the law that veterinarians and animal shelters can act as dog licensing agents, but we needed the mechanism for it to track the licenses that were issued and track where the money goes. So, so that's been one of our goals, to try to make it so this way, if there are veterinarian offices willing to participate and work with that, they would have that option, because that would make the most sense. You just got a rabies shot, well, here, pay the $6 and you can get your license at the same time. Or if somebody is reclaiming a dog from the shelter or adopting a dog from the shelter, they can just be licensed there. Currently, there's a 10-day temporary license that you can get at the shelter, but honestly, as well as we hoped. So
I would think you could make that mandatory. It's a state requirement. The other thing is, wouldn't it also reduce ACO work?
In theory, yeah. Again, it's the mechanisms to make sure the money gets to where it needs to go and that everything's accounted for is the real tricky part. So we would like to see it. That's one of our goals, to basically try to make that a reality. And then that would also help the dog licensing agents in the unorganized territories, basically help get more dogs licensed in that area. Because right now, currently, it's done, but not very actively. So, and there are other things when it comes to dog licensing, because we did the math and we figure about 54% of the state is in compliance with the dog licensing law. Depending on the town you're in, I know Old Orchard is really proactive with its dog licensing, and they're usually close in the 90% every year. But there are other towns that don't do any enforcement because they're part-time. They're there one day a week, and they don't really have an animal control officer except on paper. So there were things I used to do as an animal control officer in New Jersey. Was every 2 years we did the dog census, where we would get paid $2 for every dog that we found when we went around knocking on doors and handing out information about dog licensing. That might not work out so well here. And then the other problem is, well, how are we going to pay for the people to do the census of the dogs? So there are different ways that we can do it. I know that the Calgary model of dog licensing was really successful because they turned dog licensing, instead of a chore, it was more of a reward, or there were bonuses to getting a dog license, where it wasn't you have to get a license, but if you get your license and Fluffy gets out, it's a free ride home, or you get put in for this raffle every year that they do. And all that money really went to the Calgary animal. They don't call it the animal control division, but that's basically what it was. So, and it really increased their funding exponentially just by changing the perspective of the dog licensing.
I would think if you want the veterinary clinics to do licensing, you're gonna have to streamline the system pretty well before they're willing to do it.
Significantly, I think.
Yeah. Just the sending money to 2 different places is going to be a headache for most clinics.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Out of interest, how many do we have good numbers for the clinics that actually report the rabies vaccines?
Well, we recently just started getting huge stacks of the vaccines in, and one of the things we would love to do is make that an electronic process. But we have had good luck with a lot of clinics that are doing the vaccines, giving us phone book size, stacks of rabies certificates that we sort and send to the towns. So it comes in spits and spurts. Some send this to us almost every week. There are some that email it to us every day. Others, maybe once a quarter, they'll clean up their filing cabinet and send us a big box of rabies certificates. So we've been having pretty good luck, and there have been some towns, basically, they call us and let us know. It's like, hey, Dr. So-and-so is in our town, but we don't get any of his rabies certificates. And then we politely make a phone call and try to get that worked out.
Okay. How much time do you spend on the rabies certificates, and would it help the department to just make it all electronic anyways?
It is a dream of mine to make it electronic, because right now I have 2 staff members that spend several hours a week on just sorting all of them and then getting them ready to mail out. In fact, Reggie, how much time do you spend sorting rabies certificates a week? Because that's one of his tasks.
Technically, if I get behind, it's 2 days a week that I'm committing, so it's 16 hours a week. And lately I have not had help in the office, so I'm adding on another half day. So I'm looking at 20 hours a week, along with other things that I do.
Thank you. Doing these rabies certificates are important to us, because when I first took over in 2011, there were about 4 very large stacks of rabies certificates that were not filed. We got temp workers to help us sort and file them, and we immediately saw a difference in the amount of dog licensing done, where it jumped up a good percentage point, where we had an actual noticeable figure in the money for the following year when it came to dog licensing. So there is an effect that when the dog licensing rabies certificates are sent out to the towns, and the towns get them and use them to populate their list of unlicensed dogs, they have a pretty successful rate of enforcement. But it is a very time-consuming process that if we could make it electronic, that would make our life so much easier. But then we start having problems with Jessica and Casey, what kind of computer programs do you use for your practices?
Currently I have one that feels like it's from the 90s. I think most vet clinics have ones that feel like they're from the 90s. you're not going to find a good program that's going to communicate with any database you make. It's going to have to manually input it, I believe. There's some new programs coming out that might do the trick in the future, but at this point, it's just not going to happen. We'll have to manually input it either way.
Jessica?
Yeah, I have Impromed Infinity, so I don't know how the rabies certificates get tracked. Honestly, I'm not tech savvy at all when it comes to that. I know how to enter in my physical exam findings and look up lab work, and that's about it. So, but my receptionists do know how to track those kind of things. So I don't, that program's pretty user friendly. So I think that's some way we could probably try to link that. But personally, I don't know how exactly that would get done, but I don't think ours is that outdated. It's pretty user friendly. So we could probably figure it out there.
The only option that we were thinking of that kind of get around this at the veterinarian level when they're giving the shots is to actually create a program to issue state rabies certificates that we would provide to the veterinary clinics that, all the veterinarians that are doing it, they can log on, enter the information, and it automatically sends an electronic copy to the state, and they can print out a copy or send it to the animal owner. So that was one of the ideas that we're kicking around, but that all involves expensive database project stuff. Katie?
I almost don't know that I dare ask this question, but are you getting rabies certificates from the vaccine clinics that happen at, say, Tractor Supply or some of the animal shelters?
Yes. The ones that are doing the traditional old 3 carbon copy certificates, we get them on a pretty regular basis from the veterinarians that still use them. We did track down the company that's doing them at Tractor Supply, and they do send us an Excel spreadsheet pretty much on a monthly basis of all the clinics they have. And I know they cut back on clinics over the past couple months, so we've been sporadically getting them, but we do get an electronic Excel spreadsheet for those animals getting the vaccinations. Once we explain to the company, who I believe is in Florida, what the state of Maine requirements are, and they basically figured out a way to comply with us. That we did about 2-3 years ago.
Great.
All right. I think the thing is that if we think of other non-traditional funding sources for the program, or ways that we can save money, because one of the things that we did to try to save money was we changed the law that there has to be a possession hearing within 30 days of the seizing of the animals, and we file for possession. So there were cases where we would file for possession and we had animals in custody for 8 months. So several years ago, we changed the law. A lot of the district attorneys now are jumping on board with this. We figure now, if all goes well and there's no more pandemic stuff closing down courts, or there are no more major issues, the average lifespan, or I'm sorry, the average length of stay for animals in custody would be about 65 days. That is a ballpark figure because it's 30 days for us to file the paperwork and then have the first full hearing on the animals. Then there's an option for 14 days. If it has to be delayed, it can only be delayed for 14 days. Then after the hearing, depending on how it goes, if we win custody of the animals, we have to hold on to those animals for 21 days for the appeal period. So that's why we're saying on average, we're going to be holding animals for about 65 days. So we have at least that, going for us with this law. The really tricky part is the capacity for the courts to be able to follow up with it, because some of these hearings, which one of the things we might want to do is to change how or at least look into how we can change about how animals are treated in the court as living evidence, where they want to traditionally look at each individual animal during these hearings for possession instead of looking at all 111. The case with the cats, or it basically an entire herd So we might want to consider about how we would address that with the courts. So I got some ideas kicking around that we'll probably bring up before the next session. And traditionally when it comes to our legislation, when we get an idea, we start flushing it out now and working with you guys to basically say like, all right, this is our idea. What do you think? And what do you think the problems will be with it? And that gives us time because we have to have everything ready to go by maybe August, September, because they'll have to go through the commissioner's office and the governor's office because it's a department bill. So we have a few more hoops to go through in a longer time or shorter time frame to get this together.
Liam, talking about additional funding sources and dog license, when was the last time that fee schedule was updated? Was it like 1970?
For the fee schedule for dog licenses?
Yeah.
I don't think it was 70s. I think it was either late 90s or early 2000s. I have to try to find it through the law library because it took me a long time just to research the whole fee registration stuff and all the changes that happen with that. So a lot of times that the fee changes are normally mixed into other bills. So,
Okay.
and yeah, it's changed a lot over the past several years about how the legislator works and tracks things. So, but I can check and find out for you when that fee structure changed.
I wasn't looking for an exact date because I mean I've been doing this for 15 years and it's always been 6 and 11, and it's a small amount, but I don't know if it might be time to reassess that, and because I don't know if it's worth it. Like, I mean, $10 is the same as $6 from the 90s. So, and it might be another option to increase it a small amount to make it more worthwhile for animal control officers to be going out and doing it. Because, I mean, I spend at least a third of it on mailings just to try to cut down the number of actual time I have to spend out there. And then my time, I'm a large town, so obviously they can afford it more, but some of the smaller towns, it might be an incentive if they can actually get a little more out of it. So might be something to kick around for options.
Well, that was the logic that we use for the dangerous and the nuisance dogs, because you guys are the ones out there dealing with it. So we're just charging for the tag and the sign. So everything else is going back to the town for the animal control officer to go out there and do the hard work. Sharon, you keep waving. I'm sorry.
I may disappear soon. I'm losing battery. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
It's not lack of interest.
Yeah, I agree with Garth. It would be worth looking into changing the fee on that because it hasn't been updated in years. And even if the money doesn't directly go to animal welfare, it encourage more towns to enforce that rule and get more money that way.
Okay. I'll do. I think that was going to be one of our next topics was dog licensing, but Darlene?
It's mainly for Garth, but others as well. I noticed in some of the things that you sent before the meeting that there was talk in the office about going to 3-year licensing. I'd like to get Garth's take on that, and how that might help you or not.
I was thinking about that a little bit when I saw it, and I think for the most part, I would support that. The only hiccup I could see is I use licensing data for return of found dogs. Some areas people move around fairly often, so they might not live where their dog is licensed anymore. But I think that's a minor issue. I've had a lot of people say that can they do it for 3 years? And I think if it was the cost remained the same, so it was, instead of 6, it was 18 for a 3-year license. I think people would be fine with that. And I know that would cut down on a little work on my part. So I don't have, I mean, right now I have, and this is after I send out mailings and reminders, over 600 people to call and follow up on. So if that was cut down where I only had to do it every 3 years, that would definitely reduce the amount of legwork I had to do.
And we've been kicking around the idea here of what that might look like for us. So it would mean a change of the tag, where currently we use aluminum tags that normally last about a year before they get worn off or break or the paint just rubs off. So we would be basically looking into changing to a different type of tag, whether it be brass or steel. And basically we were thinking that this would be a permanent tag for that dog. There wouldn't be new tags every licensing season. Much like kennel tags or dangerous dog tags, this tag would be with that animal forever. So, and if they lost a tag, they would have to go back and pay for a new tag, but and that could be reassigned a new number. But the tag would basically live with the dog, and almost a lot like a license plate. So if you go in and register your dog, as long as the rabies vaccinations match, you would pay the $18, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it for 3 years, because it would be licensed for the next 3 years. The only thing that kind of concerned us was just kind of a fluctuation in funding, where it would be a lot all in the first year and then slow down the next 2 years. So, but everybody gets dogs randomly throughout the year. So not quite sure how that would shake out, but it is something that we were thinking about.
Well,
I
the
can see that being
licenses-
I can see that being an issue when it first starts. Everyone gets their 3-year license, and then as the years go by, it would probably even out a lot more. So probably initially rocky, but fine overall.
The licenses are tied to rabies vaccinations as well. So we would have to have a 1-year license to begin with.
Correct.
And then they would be on different schedules for the 3-year licenses. So it might not be as uneven as you think. Just thinking that way.
Yeah. So there are some unknowns with it, but it is something that, because the amount of money that we would save on mailing the tags out every year, because that's a big, I mean, our postage jumped up like $30 every time we send out a mail. So, I mean, our postage has jumped up significantly. So by providing the towns with a group of tags for that town and just resupplying as necessary would make it a lot less stressful on everybody here in the office. And also I would hope in the towns about getting these tags every year. Kim, if you want to talk about that. You're muted.
Sorry about that. A few questions that I had about that we've been talking about is what would happen for the dogs who get their rabies for 1 year? Now, they wouldn't have the 3-year ones, so that would be an issue. And we are noticing that a lot of the vets, even though your dog goes to the same vet, they're still giving them a 1-year rabies shot sometimes. And I don't know how that happens, but sometimes it does. So that would be an issue with doing a 3-year license with a 1-year rabies certificate. And then you'd have to balance the rabies certificate. Are you going to go by calendar year still, or are you going to go by the rabies shot? If you go by the rabies shot, without getting that new computer database from you guys up and running, we'd never be able to track any of that. And the 3-year one, we have people that move all the time. That was one of the problems we had with a bill they wanted to pass to allow people to apply for an absentee ballot and then be able to just keep that on file for 3 years so that they could just keep getting them for every election. And that was one of the major problems we have is, people don't stay in the same location anymore. They're always moving. So you'd never know where that new dog went to. The same tag, I assume you'd have to put a sticker, but the sticker also would rub off a lot within the first year. So I'm not sure how the animal control officer would have that information without, again, the computer database. And a lot of people will say, I'm going to register my dog, I know, but he's dying, she's dying, and they're only going to last 2 or 3 months. So we'd have to find some sort of mechanism that's going to allow people maybe a refund, which would be kind of difficult, but I'm not sure. But you're going to have a lot of upset people that have to register for 3 years. So maybe if that's an option for them, they can register 1 or 3. That might be a way of handling that too. So just my
That's kind of
two
what we're thinking, that it would be an optional, because there are rabies vaccinations, you get a new dog, so one shot's normally good for 1 year. That rabies vaccination is only good for the 1 year. That's the long as the license is good for. Then when it goes back for its follow-up shot, if they're doing the appropriate, keeping on their shot records and everything, that dog would then be covered for 3 years. So that way they could get the 3-year vaccination. As for the dog dying or refunds,
Hello, this is Marge.
Marge.
Sorry.
So.
Thought I was on mute.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking about, let's take a look at the entire dog licensing program and find out, well, what's working, what's not working, what, can we do better? Are we talking about, and again, this is all hypothetical, are we talking about redoing the dog licensing system where it's an open dog licensing all year long? So you get your shot and then you get your rabies shot and it expires on the date you get your rabies shot type of deal. So I'm not saying that that's the way we want to do it, but it's like, let's take a look and see what might work best for everybody. Much like I said, much like making it licensing your car.
From an ACO standpoint, the wintertime renewal is nice because in the summertime, I often don't have time to follow up with that. The winter is generally a slower season. And like January, February is time I can sit down in the office all day, make phone calls and send out mailings and stuff like that. And then, February, March, April, I can follow up before it gets really crazy busy. But August, I don't have time. And I think that would be fairly uniform throughout most ACOs. Summer gets really busy.
In the interest of time, and I don't know if Casey, you want to suggest this, do we want to create maybe a subcommittee for this to have this bigger discussion?
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, especially with the interested parties involved, in particular, people want to.
Okay.
Do I have any volunteers for a committee?
I'll volunteer for that since it directly relates to me.
Garth, Sharon?
Yes.
I'll
Anyone else?
volunteer.
Kim? Perfect. Anyone else?
Darlene.
All right, what I will do is I will send out an email after this meeting, just to basically confirming, because people's videos and cameras are bouncing around, so it's hard for me to find out who's waving their hands. But I will put together something over that, and then we'll probably, I'll start pulling together some notes and some of the laws, and then we can schedule a date and time in the near future to kind of get together and chat about this.
My question would be, if we have a subcommittee, do we also have to have that as a public hearing?
I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to lean towards yes.
I would assume so, and I think we probably should, even if we don't have to.
Right. So.
Also, do we need a motion should we have a motion to make this committee just to make sure everyone's in agreement?
Probably would be a good idea.
Does anyone want to put forward a motion?
I'll put forward a motion to form a licensing subcommittee.
Do I have a second?
Kim, I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
All opposed? I don't see anyone opposed. Motion passes. You have a committee.
The gavel has struck. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Since we're on the, no, go ahead.
Nope, please.
Since we're on the topic of committees and other stuff, do we want to talk, we're mentioning regionalization in the beginning. Do we want to address that or think about another subcommittee for that, or do you want to address it here or a later date? I know I can't remember who wanted to talk about it more.
That did come up. I think that was Bonnie, and forgive me, I didn't write down who else said it, but there was some discussion about that. So yes, I think we should probably bring regionalization back.
because I would definitely volunteer to get in on that since it would directly relate to me and my position, animal control officer.
So are you making a motion for a subcommittee?
I will make a motion for a subcommittee on regionalization of animal control.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Can we do Robert's rules? Can I just suggest an amendment? I mean, are we just looking for regionalization, or are we looking for a way to examine how animal control officers are provided in the various communities, and regionalization being a part of what we're looking at? And I'm sorry, I got bumped out of the meeting and got back in, so I apologize if you've already had that discussion.
I think we could probably put it under, and I'll have Garth make another motion about improving animal control services across Maine. Might be a nice broad topic that covers it all.
I would agree with that, and I would
Yeah.
put a motion forward to have the committee explore that topic.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that again.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Can we
Bonnie
just
says
restate
yes.
the motion so I'm clear on what I'm voting on? That went a little, I don't really understand what regionalization is either, so I'm not really clear what I'm voting on here.
Oh, okay.
So basically, regionalization is instead of each town being responsible for having their own animal control officer, it would be done by a region. Most likely, county would be responsible for it. So we'd have to explore how Lincoln County does it. Would that fit for other towns? Would it be appropriate for every town to do it? Like, would Portland be covered by the town, or would they be covered by their own? And I have some safety concern input that I would want to definitely be involved in looking into it. So
And this is only a committee to look into this, isn't?
Yes.
Isn't voting on it actually.
yeah, just exploratory committee, I guess, to look into how this would work. Would it be feasible, etc.
But Liam, repeat the motion though, because it's a little broader than that, right? If you would, please.
An exploratory committee to investigate improving animal control services across Maine.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Do you need volunteers?
Do we have any further comment before I ask for a vote?
I'll send out a separate email basically looking to the AWAC members who is going to be wanting to join on that, and then we'll set up a separate date and time for that meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further comments?
All set.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Bonnie is a yes?
Motion passes. Form the subcommittee.
Yay! 2 in one day.
Do we want to make any rules for subcommittees? Like, should we post when, like, how far in advance should we post meeting times for subcommittees? Things like that. So even if you're not on the subcommittee, you could attend the meeting and pay attention to it. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I don't really like rules. They just get in the way.
Casey, I like the idea. Maybe a week is 5 business days a reasonable amount of time for a posting?
Okay.
That's what I was going to say. A week ahead of time would work well.
Okay, we can work on that this upcoming week and start getting that organized. So like I said, I'll send out the email to all the AWAC members, just confirming who's interested, and then looking for potential meeting dates, because everybody has slightly different schedules. So, we'll try to find a good date to have everything, and then we'll start putting together the postings for it. And Reggie will be probably sending that again.
So I think that covers all of the topics we were going to cover in the meeting agenda. Does anyone have any comments or concerns?
Casey, it's Bonnie again. I'm wondering, I know Liam said at the beginning of the meeting that the AWAC typically meets every other month, and I'm going to defer to my other AWAC council members, but it seems we have a lot of work to do. AWAC hasn't been around for a while, and I'm not sure that we should be meeting every other month, but maybe every month until we start getting our feet under us, maybe. Just a thought.
Oh, I agree. We're running to catch up after a couple of years, so we do need to put more work in. So let's actually take the time right now to set the next meeting date, and then we'll open things up to public comment.
The next meeting date would be March 16th. That would be, I believe, the third Thursday. I'm sorry, the third Wednesday, and probably most likely at 1 p.m. again, if that is okay with you, or if there's another date that you would like.
Is anyone opposed to March 16th?
I'm not available that day, but I'm just one member, so.
Is there a better day?
It just is that particular day that week. I already have a 1 o'clock meeting scheduled, so if we want to do it a different day that week, that would work.
Would anyone be opposed to the 17th, the Thursday?
Only if we can drink beer.
Whatever you'd like to do at home, Bonnie, you're more than welcome to.
It's a Teams meeting. We don't see what you're drinking.
I think that would be frowned upon in my workplace, but I'll run it by the chief and see what he says.
Yeah, it is St. Patrick's Day, so.
So
I won't be able to attend that time.
Julie, how long do you think your meeting that day will go?
All right, give me 1 second to just pull up my calendar.
the other option is we could do it a week early.
There is that.
So my meeting is at, oh, actually it's at 11, not 1. So it probably will be done by 1. So sorry, I'll make it work.
Okay, so 3/16, 1 p.m.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, we'll start putting some things together and setting up those invites. Remember, you'll most likely get those invites from Reggie Manter or Reginald Manter. So just check your email junk filter, and hopefully we'll have everything squared away by next week about all these dates and times. So.
Okay. And now let's, if no one else on the council has any comments or concerns, we can open things up to public comment.
And this is where we kind of get into our learning curve. So Reggie will have to activate people's abilities to raise their hands if they would like to make a comment.
I don't see any hands raised.
Let's give it a moment.
Yeah,
Teams is not very user friendly, so. And while we're waiting, Drish, real quick, I just want to say thank you for everybody for jumping on today and talking some of these things out. I know some of these things aren't interesting, or they are difficult to deal with, or they might not be particularly interesting, but they are nonetheless important. So I just want to say thank you all for taking the time. And I know we might not all agree on things, but at least we can come here and talk it out. I don't see anybody raising their hand either.
Nope. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.